I will give the floor to Foreign Minister of Malaysia.
Your Excellency Wang Yi, State Councillor and Minister of Foreign Affairs of the People's Republic of China, my fellow colleagues. Firstly, I would like to record my sincerest appreciation to my dear friend, His Excellency Wang Yi, for not only organizing this virtual meeting, but organizing it at a very timely manner. To my fellow colleagues, I also take this opportunity to express Malaysia's deepest condolences over the loss of countless lives due to COVID-19. Our thoughts and prayers are with you all in these trying times. Your Excellencies, COVID-19 has exposed the fragility of our world. Despite significant advances in science and technology, a microscopic virus has brought us all to our knees. And Malaysia also has not been spared. Malaysia took a proactive approach when we implemented a movement control order in March. Fundamentally, a strict enforcement of social distancing. Now, we are in the recovery phase, where economic sectors are gradually being opened, businesses can now operate, and people can travel between states within Malaysia. However, mass gatherings and non-essential overseas travel are still prohibited to not jeopardize our efforts in breaking the chain of transmission. Furthermore, the proliferation of the politics of hate and divide is pushing global efforts to fight this novel coronavirus backwards, with riots and demonstrations in certain nations going against measures of social distancing and general hygiene. In fighting this outbreak, our people's life and health must be paramount. We must not allow discrimination in terms of racism or xenophobia to distract us from our fight against COVID-19. Moving forward, I would like to put forth 3 focus items Malaysia feels is required to contain, mitigate, and defeat COVID-19 and the spillover effects the pandemic has caused for us as a nation. First is to eradicate COVID-19. Secondly, Your Excellency, to restart our economies. And thirdly, reviving international cooperation. In eradicating COVID-19, there are 2 items we need to prioritize: the medication needed to treat those who are infected, and the vaccine required to ensure prevention of future infections. COVID-19 does not discriminate and affects everyone in its path, regardless of borders, wealth, or power. In order to truly declare a victory against COVID-19, we need medication and vaccine that is available, that is accessible, and equitable to all nations. As I have mentioned to my ASEAN counterparts yesterday, the vaccine is about saving lives rather than national pride for the highest bidder. On that note, Malaysia strongly supports President Xi Jinping's pledge during the 73rd World Health Assembly in Geneva that China will make its COVID-19 vaccine a global public good once it is successfully developed. Whilst we commend China's success in combating COVID-19, together with their kind and generous contributions, they have helped Malaysia in this war with an invisible enemy. I strongly believe that we as BRI nations, big or small, must come together and foster more synergies to assist those more in need. Globally, we are as strong as our weakest health system, and protecting the developing world will benefit us all in our interconnected global village. Your Excellencies, this brings me to the next point, which is reviving our economies. As we all know, this pandemic is a devastating combination of health and economic crisis. There must not be a choice between addressing the health impact and the economic fallout from this pandemic. Unless we control the spread of COVID-19 effectively, our economies will never fully recover. This point also relates to us directly as Belt and Road nations, as it is important for us to focus and navigate these uncharted waters together post-COVID-19. For our discussions today, it will be beneficial for us to be advised on how previously announced initiatives under the Belt and Road will progress, especially if the pandemic has disrupted our plans to move forward. As we know, the global landscape has now changed, and business cannot be as usual. It is imperative we receive some guidance as to how future plans will be tailored, or how future plans can be fine-tuned to best match our situation moving forward. With nations around the world implementing varying levels of lockdowns, many economies are feeling the pressure of decreased spending and significantly lower demand. Just like the rest of us in today's conference, we have all implemented our own initiatives to boost our respective economies. On Malaysia's part, we have introduced 4 economic stimulus packages, jointly worth 70 billion US, or 1/5 of our GDP. Nevertheless, Malaysia's efforts alone will not be enough to restore global trade and flows of goods and services in the post-pandemic era. This requires a united response because of how connected and independent our economies are, interdependent our economies are. After all, this is what the Belt and Road is all about: ensuring supply chain connectivity, along with the smooth flow of essential medical, food, and supplies across borders. Critical infrastructures for trade and trading routes via air, land, and sea must be preserved and must remain open as an important measure to gradually re-establish economic stability and security around the world. This is why Malaysia feels it is important to China to work closely with all of us as Belt and Road nations to rethink and to rechart a clear path forward post this pandemic. Your Excellencies, this finally brings me to my final point, which is renewed international cooperation. Yes, I agree that the pandemic is a great tragedy. But as my brothers in China always remind me, that there is a Chinese saying which means a setback may turn out to be a blessing in disguise. The pandemic gives us an opportunity to rebuild differently and to rebuild strongly. We can make a leap into a leaner global future where countries work together based on openness, on inclusivity, and on equality, with stronger social safety nets, not at the expense of our own national interests. Malaysia believes the search for the vaccine and renewed economic cooperation will be the best starting point for this multilateral effort. As one of the earliest members of BRI, and taking into account the great potential of the BRI to promote global sustainability and inclusive growth, Malaysia believes further enhancing our collective economic growth and social developments will be a benefit for all. It is crucial for us to strengthen international cooperation to combat the pandemic in solidarity and through partnerships. Finally, Your Excellencies, with all being said, we must always resist the temptation to look inwards and away from one another. We cannot envision a future of fear and insecurity. Either we stand united or we fall apart divided. This is the basis of the Belt and Road Initiative, and it is not rhetoric. There is a structure in place, and we are now reinventing that structure and wheel. As I've said, in every crisis, there is an opportunity, and now it is time for unity, for us to work together in solidarity to stop this virus and its devastating consequences. The only outcome of not getting through this pandemic is failure, and we must never allow that to happen. I believe we will prevail over this pandemic and emerge stronger than ever for a brighter future for us all. Thank you, Your Excellency. 谢谢.
Thank you, Foreign Minister. The 3 points you mentioned are very important, and I fully agree with you. And I think everybody agrees with me. Welcome. I look forward to hosting and welcome you in Beijing at an early date. Now, I'd like to invite